Today on the Whole Person Podcast, we get to talk to a man who has been around the block when it comes to mental health. He is an expert. By all means, he gets the privilege of working with individuals every day that calls into his radio show. He is a Ramsey Solutions personality, as well as he has 2 PhDs when it comes to mental health. He's an expert in this area. And today we get to talk to Dr. John Delony. That's right, Dr. John Delony, about what it means to be mentally healthy. And we're going to talk to him about his recent book that he came out with. It's Own Your Past and Change Your Future. Because I know a lot of you, and including myself, struggle with issues from our past that often play a key role in what happens in our present. And so today we're going to talk to John Delony just about that. Dr. John, welcome to the show. How are you?
What's up, man? How we doing? I'm doing great.
Good. Well, man, thank you so much for coming on today. I'm so excited to have you here. And for those that don't know, you have 2 PhDs. What are your PhDs in?
One in counseling. I'm trained to train counselors, and the other is in education. I studied higher education and student development and how colleges work and all that. Just a nerd's nerd.
You're a nerd's nerd. Well, thanks for coming on today. You know, I came across one of your videos when you were talking about your book with Dave Ramsey on the show. And I saw it and I was like, I've got to learn more about who you are. And so I started doing a little research and, you know, made the invitation for you to come on because there's these stories that we have in our past that play a huge role in how we live today, whether they're lies that we believed or things that we perceived that were inaccurate that tend to surface. And my first question is, as an individual who has a desire to be mentally whole, mentally healthy, how do we recognize some of those lies and some of those stories that we've told ourselves that we need to change to make sure that we have a better future?
So let's back out a little bit. So when I think of the stories you're talking about, is that we've got several layers, right? There's the stories that we were born into, which are, that's the air we breathe growing up, right? Like right. Dad wasn't there. That's just the house we have. Or mom wasn't there, or she was there, but she was always on her phone. And so we grew up knowing that phone was more important to mom than we were. Or God loves you and wants the best for you, or God's watching you, man. And if you screw up, he's going to torture and torment you for eternity, or God's not real. People are great, right? So that's just the world we knew. It's just all there is. And then there's the stories that we were told. These are the ones that we were told explicitly or implicitly, either, dude, you're never going to make that team, or you're too short to do this, or we're just not a math family, or we don't spend money like that. We only drive these kind of cars or those kind of cars, or, hey son, check her out. Right. And I know she's not mom, but check her out. So those are the stories we were told. And I'll say, a lot of those stories that our bodies try to solve for, throughout our history, throughout our lives are negative, right? They're powerful imprints. They're our bodies trying to protect us from future hurt. But also, I was a dean of students at universities, and I mean, I was just, like I said, I was a nerd. And when I ran into Dave Ramsey's executive VP, I was speaking to a group of parents and students, and she was there just dropping her daughter off. And she looked up in the audience to herself. She told me later and said, I'm going to hire that guy. When ultimately I decided to drop everything I knew, I was at my dream job at my dream university. I went all the way back to when I was 17, and I was in a track meet, and my coach was a man who I trusted dearly. And he put me in a race, and I said, Coach, I can't run that race. And he looked at me and said, John Delony, you can do anything. And that story has rippled through. So when I thought, man, am I going to quit everything? I'm the chief student affairs officer at $1 billion university. Am I going to quit that to become a YouTuber? I remember thinking, I can do anything, right? Because that coach had looked me in the eye and said, I see value in you. So the stories that we're told ripple through our lives. And the implicit ones are the ones about neglect. Our Mom didn't show up. Dad was too busy at work. I said, hey, Dad, you can go fishing. You can go fishing. You can go fishing. He'd be like, no, son. And he'd sit on the couch and read his magazine or whatever, or sit there on his iPad. And then those become the stories that we tell ourselves. And that's when we look in the mirror and say, I'm too fat to be loved. I can't do this job, or I can do anything, right? And those stories ripple through our lives, man. And we often think about these intellectually. Our bodies are trying to solve these things with cortisol and adrenaline and other survival hormones and stress hormones. And so you go through your life spinning up, and your body gets ready to fight things, run from things, and hide from things. And it's just this ongoing cycle over and over and over. So when somebody says, hey, how do I know I'm 40 or I'm 32 or I'm 27? How do I know if these stories are surfacing? The first place I send people, and this sounds so woo-woo and lame, and I understand that, but the first place I tell people to go is their own bodies. When does your heart start beating fast on you? When do you find yourself raged out? What really pisses you off? What really makes you happy? And not happy in a cocaine, cotton candy kind of way, but happy in a joyful way, right? That just is like, this is right. You know what I mean? And listen to your body, because your body's the one trying to protect you from yourself and from the environment. And usually you can begin to wind and pull a string all the way back to where some of these stories started.
Ooh, okay. So
I threw a lot at you there. There we go.
Well, so as you're saying this, I'm looking through the lens of my own life, and so I'm getting glimpses of like here and there. And so I'm only going to speak from my own experience because that's all I have to go with here. So I've never thought about how stories affect anxiety. So right now I'm reading a book called Eat to Beat Depression and Anxiety. I don't struggle with depression, but anxiety has been something that I've been more aware of. And what's unique, I've never had an anxiety or panic attack until like last year, maybe like June, July, somewhere around there. And then I've had like 5 of them over the last year. Well, since last June or July. And I remember the first time it happened, my resting heart rate was like 138. Like it was scary. I went to the ER. I thought I was having a heart attack.
Yep.
And then they told me I was dehydrated, which wasn't true because then I had another one the other day and it just kept going. And so fast forward, it's your diet, it's this, it's that. People wanted to prescribe medication and I didn't take medication because I feel like it's psychological because I never struggled with it before.
Yeah.
And so
can I jump in?
Yeah, go ahead.
So all anxiety it's just an alarm. It's an alarm system. So think about anxiety as just smoke alarm in your kitchen. And what we've done over the past 25 to 50 years is we've begun to solve for comfort. We've been solving for comfort for eternity, right? I want a little bit bigger plow or a sharper plow that will cut through. I want to breed this horse with that horse so I can get a bigger pulling horse. I want a better wagon axle, right? So, we've been solving for comfort for eons, but it accelerated with the pace of technology over the last 50 to 100 years in a way that nobody could have ever wrapped their head around. And so what happened when we were doing that is we begin to solve for comfort. I love leather seats, dude. I love air conditioning. I love solar panel. I love all the stuff, man. It's all cool. But what happened overnight was comfortable became right and uncomfortable became wrong. And so anytime we felt sad or frustrated or disillusioned or angry, it was wrong. Anytime we felt anxious, we solved for the anxious, not for what the anxious was trying to teach us. And so when we look at our anxiety is just an alarm in a kitchen. It's a smoke alarm, man. Running to take the batteries out of that thing isn't always the best solution. Getting a pillow and duct taping it over the alarm isn't the solution. It muffles it so you can go about your day. The right thing to do when you're anxious is to go out in the front yard and see what's on fire. Because if you put the fire out, the anxiety alarm shuts off. And most of the time, now there's some neuropathologies, there are challenges outside the bell curve, but most of the time that alarm goes off in one of 3 areas: when you're disconnected, when you have found yourself alone or lonely, your body will sound the alarms because we cannot do life by ourselves, period, full stop. And so if your relationships have been completely outsourced to the internet and they're all digital interactions with people, you're transmitting information to each other, but your body is desperate for connection. The second one is if you find yourself in a situation where you're unsafe. That could be an abusive relationship, a toxic work environment. It can also be, I owe people money and I'm not safe. If my job goes away, which it just evaporated 24 months ago, right? If my job goes away, I can't pay rent. I will be homeless. I owe somebody mortgage. I don't have enough money here. And so people think I can just run up credit card debt and lease my car. Your body, to quote Van der Kolk, is keeping the score there. The third one is autonomy, this idea that I'm in control of my next steps. And if you owe somebody money, Bank of America controls what you do tomorrow, not you. The student loan people decide what you do tomorrow, not you. If you're in an abusive relationship, your partner who's a narcissist decides what you do tomorrow, not you. And so your body will begin to sound the alarms. And if we look back over the last 2 years, where the greatest gift we could give our neighbors was, we were told it was to isolate ourselves and to not go outside and not be around other people. And when we all lost our jobs, the economy's bonkers, it makes sense that we're not okay. And when we watch news and media and scroll all day, just negativity pumping through our veins, letting us know you're not safe, you're not safe, you're not safe. Because the greatest motivator to get me to go to action is I'm not safe. Yeah. And action is often buying things. I'm going to go buy a thing. I'm going to buy this. I'm going to buy that. Right. So we have a media culture that's vested in keeping us feeling unsafe. So I keep watching their show. I keep buying their products. And so that's the ecosystem with which we swim in. And then you pile on top of this. Here's a unique feature about our bodies, which is beautiful. Sometimes our physiology will signal our anxiety response. What does that mean? Sometimes too much caffeine gets our heart rate going. And thus an expedited heart rate will tell our bodies, hey, we're in the middle of something. Something's going on here. And it will back itself up. Sometimes dehydration actually will spin your body's cycle system up to get you, hey, we're not okay. We're not okay. And it's not always water. Often it's minerals and salt and all kind of other things that help with hydration. All that to say is there is a physiological component. Sometimes not moving your body at all. I will really get spun up and anxious if I take several days off at the gym and I just lay around. So, and so there is, it's a whole ecosystem there, but anxiety is not the problem.
So, quick question for you.
Yeah.
Because I had an anxiety attack, I believe, yesterday.
Yeah.
And I did something. I challenged myself to do something that was a pipe dream that I never thought I could do. Here, I'll show you. All right. So yesterday, I completed my first triathlon.
Yeah, way to go, man.
Thank you. And literally probably like 2 to 3 minutes after completing it, like I just went into an anxiety attack. I was at the race. I had a few friends that were there that drove to watch me finish, and they're like, dude, are you okay? And I'm like, no, I need to go home. I need to lay down. And I don't know if it was because I was dehydrated or because it's the hardest I've ever pushed myself and my body was stressed out. I don't know. And so how do we learn, the markers that cause anxiety? How do we become self-aware of hey, this causes anxiety in my life?
Most of the time, if I can get somebody to, when their body starts to take off on them, to write it down. When your body starts to, here's the demon of anxiety. And I've been doubled over by it, man. I took medication for you. And by the way, medication is super helpful sometimes for a short season. What it does is it turns the alarms down enough. It takes the batteries out of the alarm so that I can go sit with a counselor, so that I could see the landscape of the life I've created for myself. It doesn't fix the alarm. It just shuts it off. And that can be helpful for a season. Your body will figure out other ways to get your attention though, if that sucker's off. And so the demon of anxiety is you begin to preemptively expect anxiety, and it becomes something you fear in and of itself.
Yes.
And then you start getting anxious about being anxious, right?
Yeah.
I used to have these sets of triggers, and one of them was the stock market, and one of them was I would check for housing, index. I was crazy. But here's the thing. I began to pre-anticipate. I got anxious about running into a room that's going to have a stock ticker on it, right? And so here's the big shift for me. When I quit fighting my body, and there's the magic word here, I got curious about what my body was trying to protect me from. And entering into anxiety with that headspace instead of a war headspace dropped my shoulders inches, right? Whenever my body would spin up, my first thought was, I wonder what it's trying to protect me from. And then that gave me a moment of, hey, we're not rolling into fight or flight here. There's nothing scary, but my body's taken off as though somebody's chasing me with a hatchet. What's it trying to tell me right now? And like, man, if you just finish a triathlon and your body acts as though, I'm not a medical doctor. That sounds physiological, right? I would go get my system checked up, right? And I would do blood work and get all that stuff done and see if I'm low on certain things, because the tambourine sounds the same regardless of the band it's playing for, right?
Yeah, because it took like 3.5 hours for my heart rate to come down
right
after that, and I had to take propanolol.
Yeah. So if you've been, and again, I'm not a medical doctor, I won't get into medications there. I know a lot about that, but I got no business running my mouth about that on the air. But if you have started experiencing anxiety attacks at the end of a training season for a triathlon and you've never experienced them before, curiosity would suggest, maybe I'm putting my body through absolute hell, and it's trying to get my attention. And I really want to accomplish this goal. It used to be believed that running a marathon was really good for you. Now, the physiologist will say it's not great for you, but it is a goal that people want to achieve. And so here's for this season what your body's going to do, right? So it's just being curious and not going, oh no, it's all coming down. And so when I begin to look at, hey, what are you protecting me from? I had to step back and say, I owe 6 figures in student loans, my wife and I, across our 6. She's got a PhD too, across all of our degrees. We're not safe. If I get fired today, we're in a mess. I'm completely focused on my career and trying to get to this title and this dollar amount, so much so that I've completely abandoned my friendships. And the friendships I do have are all work friendships, and they're all kind of, hey, I'm going to go to this coffee so I can talk to this guy because he may help me get this promotion, right? They're all ROI friendships. They're not true, open friendships. And I just had a new kid, which is a big stressor, and I wasn't sleeping. I was doing MMA practice, right? So it's just going and going and going. By the way, dysregulated sleep is one of the precursors to 100% of mental health disorders. Mm-hmm. Every single mental health disorder on planet Earth has, as part of its makeup, disordered sleeping. And so when somebody's struggling from anxiety, go to bed early, practice. And when you wake up at 3 a.m., instead of going, no, I'm pissed off, say, I wonder why I just popped up. I'm going to get up and read for a minute. I'm not going to go to war with my body. And in short order, your body will recognize that somebody's driving and that the house is okay. And the alarms begin to work their ways off.
Yeah. As you were saying earlier, like I've had my heart checked out previously. I've had EKG, echoes. My heart's good. So I know that. But you said something like almost along the lines of a self-fulfilling prophecy. You get anxious about potentially being anxious.
That's right.
And that was something that I was struggling with a little bit going into the triathlon. I'm just like, hey, don't be anxious. Don't be, and then I had it was amazing. I did 5 minutes better on my swim than I thought. I did 20 minutes better on the bike than I thought. The jog went well. Like I did, I was thinking it was going to take me 2.5 hours, and it took me like an hour and 45 minutes. I was stoked.
Yeah.
And then like 2 minutes after, I'm like, yes, I got the medal. I'm done. Oh, I've made an accomplishment. And then boom, anxiety.
And that's the problem. You mentioned it earlier. Anxiety is not a matter of disordered thinking. It's a body issue. And so we tend to think that if I get this dollar amount, I get this job, I get this person to sleep with me, I get this fill in the blank, I cross this finish line to use you for an example. then my body will go, yes, we did it. And there is that for a second. Like there is the got it, got so-and-so to date me. I'm getting married. I got this promotion. But when you look for external validation to internal gaps, it never works out, right? There's no such thing as an external plug to an internal hole. So what your body will do is be dealing with the fact that it's just been through trauma. A triathlon is trauma to the human body, and it's trying to take care of itself. It's trying to keep you alive and trying to get your attention. And so who knows what that, who knows the physiology there, but I would be curious. And if you go back and say, okay, I've had 5 anxiety/panic attacks. Have they been around long training runs or swims? Have they been around times I'm just stewing in like, don't be anxious about this, man. It's coming. Here's that. Like, what are some common things around it?
For me, food has been a trigger.
Yep.
And so, enjoying a dinner with a friend, and, he said something that, I don't know. I don't think he said anything that was a trigger, but all of a sudden I'm also eating like a tomato paste Indian type food. I forgot, mansala or something like that. And, I think it was the tomato paste that instigated it, because I noticed it can also happen when I eat pizza. And so I'm noticing several multiple food triggers in this history. I remember having fried chicken and a soda, and then immediately after, like I'm actually on my way was going to go get counseling, and then I have an anxiety attack. And instead of staying and working through that with my counselor, I actually just went and did a Zoom thing with him.
And so the greatest gift you can give yourself when you're having anxiety is to lean into it, is not run from it. And that's what's awful about it, is it's trying to get your attention. And the more you distract yourself, the more you run. And we run through a million different ways. Through one more drink and one more drink, one more meal, one more piece of pizza, one more Twinkie, one more girlfriend, one more boyfriend, one more accomplishment, one more 80-hour work week. Like we run, the alarms just get louder and louder and louder and louder, because your body's trying to get your attention. And here's so I'll use your example. You just crushed it. And so here's me not pointing fingers at you, but here's me saying, I'm going to use you as an analogy. Okay.
Yeah, go for it.
I was just bent on being a college president, and I wanted to be there by like 35. I had some crazy goals for myself. It was a very humbling moment when I had to look in the mirror and say, after all this work I've put in, after all the graduate school, after all of the presentations and traveling the country and doing academic stuff and being a professor, my body can't have this job right now. And I had to stop, and I had to get off that track. One, it wasn't real. It was an illusion. I was chasing a fantasy. There was no college in the right mind would have put me as their president at 35. That would have been clinically insane for them to do. I would have crashed the school into the ground. The second thing is, I was fast enough to run work-wise. I get the work done. I was fast enough to run intellectually. I was smart enough. But I lacked some other things. And so it's you getting 3 weeks out from your triathlon and your body's really starting to rattle around the edges, that you have to look in the mirror and go, man, I trained really hard, but I got to stop. That's the magic. And what we do in our culture is we don't want to do that. We want to push through and then try to go get something, quote unquote, get something to shut the anxiety off. And so go back to my alarm analogy. It is, man, I want to keep eating pizza. And something about it, whether it is a stream all the way back to mom looking at you going, oh, honey, you're got to go get the husky jeans because you're a little bit pudgy. And we want the boys to not make fun of you, right? That might be the trigger all the way to 35. And you're still really paranoid, and your body's sending off alarm systems every time you eat, quote unquote, the right or wrong food. Or maybe you have an actual allergy that just makes your heart race a little bit faster, and it feels like whatever it happens to be, right?
It is true. I took a blood antigen test, and
there you go. You have an allergy. Yeah. And so here's the deal. What we don't do well in our culture is acknowledge reality.
Right.
I had some genetic testing done from a doctor that I work with, and he's incredible. And he sat me down and worked all with me. He says, you have something called a cookie jar gene. And he gave me some number for it. And I said, what is that? And he said, I hate to be the one who tells you this, but you cannot have it in your home. You cannot have cookies in your house. You cannot have gummy candies in your house. I'm an addict. My wife, who is a serial killer, can open up a bag of like gummy candy and eat like 3 of them and then just put it in a drawer and then eat it like later. You know what I found last night? I was looking for something in the freezer. 2 boxes of Girl Scout cookies in the freezer downstairs, like in the basement. And I walked upstairs and I was like, oh, are we hiding things from each other now? Who are you cheating on me with? And she started laughing. She's like, what are you talking about? And I said, I found the 2 boxes of cookies in the garage. A, how are they still in the house? And B, why are you holding out on me? She can just do that. I cannot. She's going to hide them before I get home today. They will be somewhere else because right when I get home, I'll think, I probably just have one thin minute. I just want one. And then pretty soon it's gone. So here's what stinks about my life. I can't have them in the house. And I know that. And for somebody, I can't imagine being allergic to pizza. That would make me want to set my hair on fire. Yeah, but that's the deck of cards you've been dealt, right? For this season, and maybe you can work on to reduce long-term body inflammation and your histamine response. Maybe you can get there over time, working closely with the doctor. Great, that's awesome. But for this season, I just can't do pizza, and it stinks, and it's awful, and it's our life, and then we got to move on, right?
Right. So going back to the race aspect, and you were saying how you've prepared yourself and you've had this idea where once you accomplish it, you'll have, what was the words that you said?
Like that your body will feel whole. Like
right.
You'll quote unquote be there. You've arrived.
Right. And in this process, I've learned something. So I asked my parents they live like 3 doors down from us. I asked my parents if they'd be willing to show up at the finish line for me. My wife, she just had a C-section. She's not going to be able to come. And so I wanted someone there. Knowing someone was there would help me finish strong. And the response I got was, no, we have our own lives to live. And that was...
I'm sorry, dude.
Yeah, it sucked.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, well, whatever. And then afterwards, I get home after the anxiety attack and I was like, you know what? I did something awesome. I did something that I never thought I'd be able to do.
Yeah.
And so I went to go show them the medal and my brother-in-law was there. And as I'm telling my dad, he goes, well, in a way, he goes, well, tell him how short it was. Like, as a way, it's like, this wasn't a real race. This wasn't a real, because it was a sprint triathlon. It was 400 meter swim, 12-mile bike, and 2-mile run. Right. And so he was downplaying like, oh, that's nothing. Like that was everything for me.
Yeah.
And what I've realized is my entire life, I've sought their approval.
There you go.
And my mom has been probably more better off at giving me approval. But anytime I've ever did, like even in Little League, I could have done like 10 things amazing in a game, but the only thing that got pointed out was what I did wrong. That's right, what I didn't do right. And what I've realized a couple of things over the last 24 hours in this process. One is that any success that I have, I don't feel like is ever good enough. I don't feel like anything I do is ever good enough. And that's a lie I've believed in my own life. And that I can't have the success that I want because whatever I attain isn't good enough. And I've realized today, like even before we talked, that that lie that I'm believing stems from that culture within my family growing up.
That's right.
And then the other aspect is, all right, so how do I deal with this moving forward? Because my parents live 3 doors down. And anytime I've done something, I've wanted to share it with them. So now do I just stop sharing it with my parents? Yeah, and then just realize that there's a new boundary and I can't have that relationship? And then also, one last thing. So I'm throwing it all and then you answer it.
I love it.
And then how do I change that need or desire in my own life and then realizing that it is enough and that I can accomplish? How do you reverse all that?
Yeah, that's a great question. You are asking the question that millions and millions and millions and millions of people ask. It's the question I had to ask when I looked in the mirror, and I was headed to Harvard for a program after my first PhD, I was running, and I kept saying, when do we get to wherever it is we're going? And like you, when do I finally get that approval? When am I finally going to get it? And it was this, oh, it's not coming. This whole machine is set up to keep people running. It's not coming. And man, so hear me say, I'm sorry. Like it stinks when the people you love the most, you want to share something with them, and they're met with indifference, or you're not worth our time, or a dismissal. Oh, well, it's not even real. It's not even that good. So here's a lost and forgotten critical part to being well that we have completely dismissed, totally thrown it away in the garbage. And that's this idea of grief. It is an important psychological function that we have just wallpapered over and said, move on with your life. You know, if you die, if you work in corporate America and your spouse dies, you get 3 days. You get 3 days of bereavement leave, and you got to be back in the office. If your cousin dies and you have some vacation, you can take that, but you got to get back in the office. And so we just have a culture that's just said, all right, shake it off, man, and move on. And so what I would tell you is, I think, and again, I'm speaking into your life here, and so I may be way off, but it sounds like this has been a recurring narrative forever of a little 6-year-old boy saying, hey, Dad, do you see me? And he says, no. Hey, Dad, do you see me? Whatever. No. And then you have a baby, and it's like, we'll see if we can make it over to the hospital. We'll come by if we can. Hey, Dad, look at this incredible. I'm not an athletic guy, and I'm doing a thing. Okay, I got stuff to do. It's Saturday. And that's that same 6-year-old little kid saying, hey, Dad, do you see me? Hey, Mom, do you see me? Do you see me? Do you see me? And going back to that 6-year-old, if a 6-year-old on the plains of northern Iowa 2,000 years ago, if their parents left them, they were going to die. And so their body will spin up their heart rate, their pupils will dilate, they will see threats and danger everywhere, because there is danger everywhere. And for you, it sounds like that 6-year-old is still running the show. My 6-year-old ran my show. My 10 and 14 and 17-year-old ran the show decades after those years passed. And so I would tell you, man, at some point you got to sit down and exhale real big and drop your shoulders as low as you can drop them, and say out loud, it really sucks that my parents have not cared about me in the way that would make me whole. My parents have never seen me. And then the nightmarish statement you got to say out loud is, and they're never going to. This is the life they've chosen. And there's freedom on the other side of that. There's great light on the other side of that, but you have to sit in it for a season. Sitting in it sometimes looks like writing a couple of letters that you will never send. I've done that. I've written letters to my 12-year-old self and my 14-year-old self over, hey, this happened, man, and it shouldn't have happened, and I'm sorry. And now I don't carry that weight anymore. My parents, who I love deeply, they're incredible people. They do not get a vote into my life. They don't get a vote into how I raise my kids. They don't get a vote into where I live, the jobs that I have. They'll give me their advice, and that's great, and I'm grateful for it. And they tell me that they're proud of me now, and that's awesome. And but they don't get a vote. My wife does, and 4 or 5 men that I'm close to that have been in my life for years get a vote. A couple of women that I trust get a vote. Other than that, they don't get a vote. And that was a period of grieving it and letting it go, owning reality. This is the reality. My parents do not care if I run a marathon and do something great. In fact, they're going to belittle it because it challenges them sitting on the couch all Saturday afternoon. So I'm going to have to find other people in my life that will cheer for me. And that's going to be my mission for the next 5 to 10 years. I'm going to make those relationships. And I'm not going to hate my parents. I'm not going to cut them out and blah, blah. But I am going to have boundaries, and I'm going to move on with my life. I'm going to stop seeking that approval. And when you do that, and you do the work of writing these things down, writing those letters that you're never going to send, your body goes, oh, he's driving again. We don't have to sound the amygdala anymore. We don't have to ring the alarms off the wall anymore to get his attention. And your body tends to settle into a cool. And here's the beauty of it. When that happens, then you can be reckless in your ambition and achievement. I am incredibly ambitious. I want to help a lot of people. I want people's lives to be better, millions of them. And I don't apologize for saying that. What I know is that's not going to heal me. It's not going to make my life better. It's not going to make my wife not get sick someday or to me not get in a car wreck or something. It's not going to heal me. And when I uncouple those two things, so I want you to run a marathon. I want you to do those things that you want to do. And also I want you to know it's not going to solve me. It's not going to make me a quote unquote better person, but it will show me that I'm capable of hard things. And it will be another notch in my resiliency belt. And it makes me stronger so that I can roll around the floor with my grandkids in 40 years. Right. So it is good. And it's just not going to solve things. I got a call. I was in a car the other day. This is like 4 days ago. And I was in a car in another state, and the head of publishing had a text message, and he just handed the phone back to me. I was in the back seat, and it said, "Hey, congratulations. You're the number one. Your book is number one, the number one adult nonfiction book in the United States of America. Congratulations. You hit number one on the list." And then within 24 hours, I was at my house mowing my yard, and I had to get the oil changed on my car and drop some clothes off at the dry cleaners. Literally nothing in my life changed. And I knew that going in. So I've heard of people getting this big accomplishment and they look around, they're like, all right, where's the confetti and where's the magic checks that fall from the sky? They just don't. I still had to go get my oil changed, but I knew that going in. So I was able to celebrate the accomplishment. It's pretty cool. My wife threw a rad little party for us at home. That was awesome. And then I went and got the oil changed. And so I didn't have this extra layered expectation this was going to solve it. And now I'm already thinking about what the next book's going to be. And so I'm on to the next, and it's cool and it's beautiful and it's rad. And I'm holding it really loosely. Does that make sense?
It does. It does.
So spend a season in grief, my brother. And there's a whole chapter in that book about that, about what that looks like and what moving forward looks like. And it's slow and it's painful and it's the worst. And it's absolutely 100% necessary to be whole and well.
I'll definitely check that out. And for those that are listening, I don't want to make it sound like my parents are complete a-holes because they're not.
Yeah, why do you hate your parents? I'm just totally kidding. I'm kidding. Hey, man, all of our 100% chance in 25 years, my son's going to be sitting on some podcast talking about his dad, right?
Right.
So it's the way it goes. And here's the beauty of it. Now, when I invite somebody to something and they say no, I used to take that real personal. What's wrong with me? Why not? What did I do wrong? What did I screw up? And now I think they've got stuff going on. Great. I'm not going to hold that brick in my backpack. They said no because stuff's going on in their life. Your parents can't acknowledge your accomplishments because of something going wrong in their life, not you. And so I'm going to let them carry that because I'm not going to carry that brick for them anymore. Life's too short, and you got a little baby to carry around now, brother.
Right. And I'm grateful for a lot of stuff that my parents did do as well.
That's right. It's holding both, right? It's holding both of them.
Yeah, they paid for the majority of my private school education for college. They've done a lot. And so I don't want to, I don't want to just only speak ill of that. I want people to know that I'm really lucky. I could have had a way worse upbringing than what I did. And so for that,
let me tell you this. A lot of us get into a dangerous game of grief comparison where we say things like, it wasn't that bad. Or, yeah, he hit me, but dude, he pays my rent and he just had a bad day. Or she cheated on me, but I've been not present. And so what I would tell you is, yes, a cornerstone of wisdom is being able to hold both, right? The good stuff and the tough stuff, where we work, where we live. That's why I don't understand how people can't both love the United States deeply with all of their heart and mind and soul and not wanted to improve it, to see some things we got to do better. We got to do differently, right? It doesn't have to be one or the other. Same with my marriage. My marriage is incredible. I love my wife and I'm always working to make my marriage even better and better and better. Same with parenting, same with my job, right? There's stuff about working here I love. There's stuff about here I would change tomorrow if they made me CEO, and they haven't. So I'm going to, I get to hold the tension there, but I would tell you it's important to not wallpaper over the hurt. If you do that, your body still continues to solve for that, and you'll move on to the next thing and the next thing and the next thing, and it will end in ash at some point. So I would tell you, yeah, man, they gave you a great childhood, and you were really disappointed this weekend. Both of those things are true.
Any parting things that you want to share with the audience?
You tell me, man.
Let me ask you this. I haven't asked someone this in a long time. What brings you peace?
What honestly brings me peace is a couple of things. Number one, I'm a person of faith. So my relationship to God brings me peace. That I'm not the center of the universe. And I spent a lot of years trying to hold up the universe as though every issue on earth, from Russia and Ukraine to the climate, to the economy, to politics, it was all on me, right? And it's just not.
Yeah.
The second thing that brings me peace is my relationship with my wife. And we're celebrating 20 years this summer, and it has been wonderful and messy and awful and rocky and all the things in between. But knowing that I am braided together to somebody and we are in this thing together and is important. What brings me peace is my friends, my community, a group of people that I trust and love. And if I sent one text, I'd have people on a plane here in 24 hours. They'd be in my state. And I can't do life by myself, but they give me peace. And then the little things, man. All weekend, I've been on the road, so I sat outside and did a bunch of yard work. And I cut down trees, and I dragged trees around my property and mowed. And then I sat on my front porch and just tried to count how many different birds were singing. And I was trying to call turkeys in and get them to come. So, I mean, it's little stuff like that. The selling a bunch of books and making number one on the list, that didn't bring me peace. It's a cool job accomplishment. What brings me peace is relationships. Watching my kid this weekend in the play, he crushed it, dude. He's in 6th grade. Dude, that brought me peace, man. It was so awesome. He'd worked his butt off for so long. Those are the things that bring me peace. And financial security, like not pacing around my house in the middle of the night wondering what bill I'm not going to pay, which I did for years. Knowing I have an emergency fund and I don't owe anybody any money, like that brings me peace. And I'm not rich by any stretch, but I'll be all right. And so those are the things that bring peace, man. Very simple stuff.
Thank you so much for coming on today. Where can people follow you at?
You follow me at John Delony. I'm still figuring out how the internets work, so I'm pretty unsophisticated, but at John Delony. And then if you want to pick up the book, you can go to johndelony.com.
John, thank you so much for coming on to the show. Have a great day.
You too, man.